Hey there, students. In the last lecture, I explained the difference between a revenue tariff and a protective tariff. Just to resum that up real quick, remember that a revenue tariff is a tariff that is collected only to fund the government. There is no ulterior motive. It's typically low. It's designed to give the government some income. Remember that the government was funded mainly by import taxes in the first century plus of our government all the way through the Progressive era. And then we see protective tariffs, which are intended to protect domestic industry and to discourage imports. Now, the difference is in the intent. Is the tariff meant to just provide revenue for the government, or is it meant to protect native industry? I don't think that I've shouted out to Mr. George's A-Push class in Michigan, so y'all go ahead and, let's get a well-deserved shout out there. And so as far as that goes, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to address here is the constitutionality of protective tariffs. And this is because when we look at Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Now, this is the section that describes the powers of Congress. It enumerates all of these different powers. And so when we look at the enumerated powers, it says here that Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, comma, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. Now, notice this is not just the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, period. That the government, the federal government, does not have unlimited and unconditional authority to tax. The Constitution limits the power of the government in this respect. And so as far as that goes, let's think about a strict constructionist versus a loose constructionist reading of this. Now, if we look at this through the lens of Jeffersonian strict construction, then the taxes have to provide for one of these three things. It has to pay the debts, provide for the common defense, and general welfare. Now, here's the thing, that the term general welfare is a problematic term, because what does this mean really? Now, we can think it should benefit everybody or almost everybody, but it is a clause of the Constitution that causes some problems, because you ask, what is general welfare? Now, Alexander Hamilton might say it's in the general welfare to have a manufacturing sector because that makes our economy stronger. So people can make all kinds of arguments, but it's still something that is a bit tricky. For example, if you look at the Confederate Constitution, if I search for the words general welfare, I'm not going to find those words anywhere. Got that little beep saying that it's not there. And of course, the Confederate Constitution had some tweaks in it. It's really about 90 to 95% the U.S. Constitution with some amendments, not formal amendments, but just some tweaks to protect the status of slavery and the rights of the states. And so as far as that is concerned, now we see here that when we go to Article 1, Section 8 of the Confederate Constitution, now you see where this is pretty much the exact same Constitution almost, but they did some tweaks here. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises for revenue necessary to pay the debts, provide for the common defense, and carry on the government of the Confederate States. But no bounties shall be granted from the Treasury, nor any duties or taxes on importations from other nations be laid to promote or foster any branch of industry. And all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the Confederate States. So when you look at it through this lens, it's not to try to prefer one section of the economy over the other. So typically, when there's a protective tariff, now you can even look now, our current president likes to use protective tariffs more, I think, from weaponizing them, kind of like with Jefferson's embargo, more than from an ideological standpoint. But as far as that goes, you might ask, well, if protective tariffs were unconstitutional, as was asserted by John C. Calhoun, that was the whole impetus of the Nullification Crisis, that the tariff of 1828, given that it was clearly a protective tariff, was a violation of the United States Constitution. And so it all goes into, how do you interpret this term general welfare, and are you looking at the Constitution through a strict constructionist or a loose constructionist lens? And so as far as all that goes, that's something for you to decide, but I will get into some other other things here as far as getting into Henry Clay's American system, Jefferson versus Hamilton, and the Nullification Crisis. Some of those videos have been made, some will be coming soon. So stay tuned for some more specific coverage of the debates about the protective tariff. But until then, hopefully you've gotten a little exposure here and maybe a little bit of starter for a good class discussion on revenue and protective tariffs and their constitutionality. It's always a pleasure.